So, hi everybody, here we are at the European Perspective number 6, and now we speak about health and COVID in Europe. So, for this episode, we have several hosts. So, we discuss about the health in Europe, and we ask what's wrong with the Europe starting a second lockdown while some other parts of Asia seem to have a better situation. We know that the reaction in Europe to respond the second wave to the COVID pandemic seems most incoherent. And so we ask, haven't the lesson of the first wave been learned? An inertial capacity to change health system was developed after the Second World War, that we should be adapted to a new economic, environmental, and societal challenges in a globalized world. So we see difficulty everywhere about organization, everyday life, the mask, hygiene measure, test, remote teleworking, schools and university courses, administration, health management. Difficult for citizens also to combine individual freedom with collective interest. You know that we have talked about a Marshall Plan in the past for the education, and so we ask maybe a Marshall Plan for the health which could be interest and necessary, even efficient, to move forward toward a new approach to health in Europe, where there are similarity in our system, health system, institution, social security, and cultural approach to deal with the societal challenges. In Europe, we have a European Center for Disease Prevention, that is the ECDC, and the control, and a European Center for Disaster Medicine, the CEMEC. And what is their role? Have they been taken account in approaching the coronavirus crisis in Europe? In particular, the CEMEC, since long time ago, that responsible by the Councils of Europe and WHO to mitigate the consequences of the technological and natural disaster, pandemic crisis such as COVID, for example, through the dissemination of the culture of disaster medicine and the training of emergency worker. So to discuss with this, we have Marie-Hélène Cagliol, as usual, because she is the president of the Laboratory European Anticipation and Political Anticipation. Marianne Rank-Cormiera, that is president of Citizen Route, because in our emission we discuss of European issues and citizen issues for Europe. We have Enrico Bernini-Carri, that is the president of the European Center for Disaster Medicine that I talk about. We have also Antonino Laudani, that is doctor and secretary of Department of Health for the Movement Roosevelt in Italy. And then we have Giorgio Carlotti, that is senior policy officer for health strategies and to the research and development, the European Commission. So, to discuss and introduce this question, I let you speak, Maria-Hélène. ha le microphone.
Yeah, thank you, Fari. Sorry about that. Should be used to that after so many Zoom and online sessions. So thank you again for the invitation and for this interesting topic, very timely, of course. Indeed, it seems that we are, in France at least, we are finishing, hopefully finishing. We should know this evening if we are finishing it or not, a second lockdown. Fortunately, information about what goes on in Asia is seldom, but if we follow closely, it's a fact that it seems that Asia, which was at the origin of the pandemic, seems to have dealt with the problem a lot better. Alors, it's interesting. It's not just China. It's Japan. It's South Korea. It's Taiwan. It's Vietnam even. So it questions, of course, why Europe, which is supposed to be so modern and perfect, cannot deal with the problem better. So is it a question of modernity, of indeed digitalization of our society? Is it a question of means? Indeed, after so many years, 70 years of doing the EU, we hadn't yet managed to. Well, there were programs, health programs already existing, but it seems that we didn't have yet a Europe for health really, which now we seem to have. But the question is also if there's not something really cultural, because we see also the difficulty. That's the problematic that I would see myself. The acceptability of whatever EU health program, however clever and relevant. I've had a look, and I know Giorgio at least will explain to us better all this. So it seems perfect. It's about resilience, adaptability. It's about education. It's about lots of things. I mention education in particular because I find might be something which is going to be a huge problem very soon, which is the acceptability of EU measures in this domain by the national level. Here it's more a question, I'm not sure. Here I have a question about how it's being accepted and coordinated by the states, and how is the EU national level working on this in this regard. But of course, what worries me most is the people who see this crisis as an opportunity to break their freedoms, their liberties, and to digitalize them. So there is a huge resistance to these kind of changes. So my big question is how are we going to deal with that? Because there is something indeed which is different between the Asian and the European societies, and it's the culture. There is a sense of collectivity in Asia that used to be, because I think it was there more in Europe before, but which has disappeared in the past 30, 40, 50 years with a huge problem about authority, the notions of authority, of collectivity, of all this. And so that's what worries me very much, that I would like to submit as an introduction and a problematic to our speakers.
Okay, thank you, Marie-Hélène. So I give the speech to Enrico. You want to give first an idea, then George, then Nino, okay? Okay. Ok. Vous devez muter. Aspetta, ok. Comme ça. Ok, c'est bon, je pense. Tout le monde entend? Vous m'entendez ou pas? Non? Vous
Si on t'entendait pas très bien, mais là ça va mieux.
Maintenant mieux, tu dois être près de ton micro. Oui.
Ok, scusate perché. Your micro are open, not all, ok. Enrico, you can.
Tell me, Maria, I don't hear you before.
Okay. No. So Marie-Hélène finished to speak. So then I give you to continue after her, and then George, and then Nino.
Okay. Now I am the president. You know that I am the president of the Center for Disaster Medicine that is in San Marino, and we are in the Council of Europe. We are at the School of Educational School for the Council of Europe, and I am a specialist in infectious disease. So I am completely full in the situation of coronavirus. And now we have some problem with the second wave. The main problem in the second wave, I prepare, sorry, share screen. Okay.
Do you want to share something?
Yeah.
Okay.
Some.
Okay. So you can select. You have to when he say select window on screen, you go down to the menu tendina and you choose your document.
I think it's impossible to.
Okay, ma strano.
You see?
Aspetta.
You see anything or not? No?
No, aspetta,
No.
vediamo un po'. C'è niente, no. You have to put share screen, and then it's a menu up and tell you select window or screen. You see,
Share screen.
and you have to select your document if it's open.
Yes, it's open, but it's impossible
Okay. Ah,
to
bon.
select. Okay. It's the same. Okay. The main problem is now in the second waves is immunity, antibodies, and T cell. The gravity and the amplitude of the cycles and the life of the cycles. Treatments, flu and the interference, and reinfection and posthumous. The first problem that we have in the second wave in Italy, but in all the world, is the immunity. The immunity is only for antibodies or another type of immunity. The situation now is very difficult because all the people said that antibodies is not enough to protect the people, but the people, the common people, don't know that we have another type of memory of immunity, and it's represented by T cell, and there is a real strong immunity against the coronavirus. We don't have now no reinfection in the world except 30 or 40 cases. It's so the situation is a good situation for the immunity. The second problem is the gravity and the amplitude of the cycles. What is the problem? The gravity of in Italy, I don't know exactly in France, but in Italy, the gravity and the amplitude of the second waves is not so strong respect to the first wave. In the first wave, we had about 35,000 died. Yes, the people died for the coronavirus. In the second wave, at this moment in time, we have only 15,000 people that died for coronavirus. Life of the cycle. The life of the cycle is a particular type of life for every virus. But for virus, respiratory viruses, the cycle in general is from 40 to 70, 70 days of the cycles. So we think that in the first week of December, we will have a decrease of the second wave. The other problem is the treatments. The treatments now we don't have special treatments to care and to save the people. So we, in effect, we are waiting for the vaccine. Another problem is the flu infection and the interference, and is a real great problem because now we don't have in Italy no one cases of flu. So we think that there is a particular type of virus interference that I don't know what is the words, combat the infection from the flu infection against the coronavirus. The coronavirus is more strong and more power respect flu, so we don't have no one case of flu. Another problem that I already spoke is the reinfection we don't, for the moment, we don't have a reinfection from coronavirus. And the great problem for the future we will be the posthumous of this type of infection, because we don't know exactly what type of posthumous we will have in the future. Okay.
Allora, okay. And what can you say for the organization of Europe? Center is
Yes.
important. They could call you or ask you.
Yes,
or
I think
but
yeah.
nobody apparently nobody.
Maria, it's very hard to hear you. Your microphone
Okay,
doesn't work well,
okay.
so it's almost impossible to hear you.
Okay. So Enrico, and what about your center? Because Europe could address
I
you
think
to
the problem of
ask you.
Europe is that there is no coordination, general coordination in this type of situation, of pandemic situation. We have the ACDC in, I think, Stockholm, but they are not on the ground in the country, so they don't know exactly what kind of politics we have in the single country. We have a general indication and general only general, come si dice, guidelines for the pandemic situation, but they don't effectively they don't stay in the country, and they don't help the country to resolve the problem of pandemics. So the Europe don't use only one words. They have so many type of politics in pandemics that is very, very difficult to coordinate the politics of every country.
Mm-mm.
And this is a great problem, I think.
Yes, and I ask myself if they know about you, because when you come to our broadcasting in Italy, that Nino Laudani has each weeks on Wednesday, and talk about health in Italy. It's in Italian, the broadcast, but we discuss, and we have you one time with Nino, and you explain that this crisis and what happened with COVID is not unknown. Many people was expecting that could have this crisis, to happen this crisis, but many papers were written, but they were inside the inside, come si dice, aspetta, Marianne, Marialene, how do you say tiroir in English?
Drawers.
Drawer.
Drawers.
So maybe this paper were left in drawer. So why they could ask to you, because you do trainings each years. You are in this kind of emergency situation. So, but in any case, you are mounting a school, no, in Europe,
Yes.
Enrico. Can you say some words, and then we will talk about
Yes,
better
the
after
problem
it.
of Europe, I think, is a cultural problem, because we don't have a common school to prepare the doctors and the other figures to manage this type of problem. So we think that now is the moment to create an international school where the people can form and inform himself themselves. For in the field of disaster medicine, not only disaster medicine, but in disaster in general. And pandemics is a typical situation of disaster medicine. So I think it's a good job, it's a good proposal to create an international school to come si dice, condividere, to
Share.
yes, to share the common problem of every country.
Okay, and so Giorgio, what can you say to us, because you are in Europe and you are in charge of health program of R&D, and you inside the machine in Brussels. Micro.
Yes, definitely an insider. I am Nigel Farage's worst dream or nightmare. I'm a second generation Eurocrat. In 1 month, I will be 30 years, 30, working for the Commission. I started very young, and my father started very young in 1957. So that it's 63 years. There is a Clarotti. My father was in charge of banks, and I'm in charge of health research. First of all, thank you very much for inviting me. For two reasons. First, because I'm a European federalist. So I fell in the European portion as a kid, going to do a tricycle in the Berlaymont. So I know it very, very, very well, because with my sister we were playing in the corridors when we were little boys and little girls. My day job is working for the European Commission, when I'm responsible for the strategy of research in terms of health. I'm a very happy Eurocrat, because in terms of research coordination, the EU has a lot of power. We have the mandate to do research, because research has positive externalities and there is added value to coordinating research. And in terms of health, normally you wait 10 or 15 years before you see the results of what you do. And this year with the COVID, we've been working very, 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 very hard. But since the 30th of January, so the 30th of January at 8 p.m., we launched an emergency action for research against a pandemic. We have a special fund that we created when the Ebola crisis struck Africa. And we were among the main funders to research Ebola in Africa. And this, for the first time, we could apply it to Europe. And 1 day before the WHO declared the pandemic, in terms of research, Europe has reacted. And the satisfaction comes from the fact that today, I have on the screen here, the results that we have presented to member states. We have received a 350 million euro extra for the research effort from President von der Leyen under coverage of the Council, and we have results. We have vaccines, so the AstraZeneca vaccine and the German vaccine, which has been done, the BioNTech vaccine, which has been invented by a German startup, have received funding from our program. They use a new methodology to do vaccines, which has been funded by the European Union. We have been using a supercomputer located in Bologna that we normally use only to do very complex economic or astronomy or meteorology research to screen, I'm looking for the name, it's called Escalate, and we have used this supercomputer, which is located, co-located in Bologna, Jülich, and Barcelona, to screen 500 billion compounds. So the idea was, let's screen everything that there is. Let's see if it could match this famous spike protein. You all know about the spike, that's the gun of SARS-CoV-2. And in less than 6 months, we have found 2 or 3 drugs which could attack it. There is a drug called raloxifene, which was used to treat osteoporosis in women, which appears to be attacking exactly this spike molecule. We have found cortisone, which is a very cheap drug, which apparently attacks the virus. So both these drugs have been given to Mr. Trump to help me be saved. He took everything that was available. Well, in Italy, AIFA, the Agency for Pharmaco, has allowed this drug to be used. So it's going to be used in hospitals as of December. So in less than a year, in terms of research, I can see results. And the third results that we've had is that we've put together all the tests that exist in different countries. We've done a European-wide test, which has allowed to already screen some compounds which could be, I would say, available for use in Europe, and it's called tocilizumab. So that drug has been effective in critically ill patients as of 19 November. So on research, on high-tech response by drugs, Europe is coordinated and it is acting. True, as it has been said, health is not a EU competence. So when we move from research to health, it's not a competence. In fact, in Italy, it's not even a national competence. Most of research is done at the level of region. And there I put my European federalist hat, and I say that the countries who have responded the best, countries like Germany or Austria, for example, are federal countries, where the national coordinates and where the regions reply to the different situations that there are in different locations. There are other federal countries, like Spain, where things have not gone too well. Why? Because the reply has been politicized. You have heard the government, which is socialist, say we should lock down, and the governors of some very powerful provinces who say no lockdown, it's bad for the economy. Or others, like Mr. De Luca in Italy, have said, I will lock down even more because I want to protect the health of my people. So what President von der Leyen has done, she has taken the initiative. She has been extremely bold because she has done things which were not in the treaties and said, look, guys, you all need protection equipment. I have resources. I will start stocking masks and ventilators. And then if you want, we can share them. Some countries said, okay. Some countries like UK say, not for us. So we offered UK to join that scheme. They said no, for political reasons. Finally, Mrs. von der Leyen has been really an activist. I think she has had a hackathon, she has had telethon, and she has raised more than 16 billion of euros all across the world, and she has coordinated the fact Europe has said we will help countries who don't have money to get the vaccine. But that is on the condition that all the other countries play ball. So to date, all countries, including China, including Russia, not the US, have agreed in a scheme which is called COVAX, which is coordinated by the World Health Organization, which is paid for like people like Bill Gates, and the money that was collected in these hackathons. I will share now with you, Maria, the links to the ERA versus Corona research plan. So that is the research that we've done. And then I will share the link to the global pledge that President von der Leyen has been coordinating.
Okay,
so we cannot do much. I don't think we should do everything. I think we've done much more than what we could do. I'll answer on Asia and why does it work later on. I want to also have the opportunity for Nino to give a contribution. Thank you.
Okay, Nino, so let's give our insight of Rooseveltian's wise. Because I have an emission who is pilule de sagesse, pillole di saggezza o wise pills. Rooseveltian wise pill because our movement is inspired by Roosevelt.
Okay, so let me start actually saying everyone good evening. I think it's my pleasure to be here and have the opportunity to share ideas around the topic, which is extremely interesting. Can you hear me well? Or is it okay? Or sound is okay? Good. Okay, so I think the topic is extremely interesting. For a moment, if you allow me, I would like to step back a little bit from COVID-19 in itself, because I think too many times we are in a reactive mode, more in a programming mode. Instead of planning, sometimes we react. And this is an example of how reaction sometimes, or reacting, is not the best strategy. I think sometimes the real world runs faster than our organizations across the world, and Europe is also one of those. And even at the local level, we see the discrepancies between the real life sometimes and what is supposed to happen at the higher level where the power is. So what I want to say is that prevention, it's sometimes forgotten, because prevention is something you do today for tomorrow. So people tend to do things today for today for today, for yesterday. So, and we always forget that we should plan and prepare ourselves for something which is coming and probably will come. And nowadays, I think everything becomes global. So we travel, actually, we used to travel more in the past, now it's a little bit less. So we travel between countries, we exchange goods, and this unfortunately also drives the risk too on a global basis. And talking about region, of course, one of the topic is planning. And we know that we have a pandemia plan, and there was a debate here in Italy, and which was very tricky because this plan was supposed to be updated on a regular basis. Unfortunately, we discovered that it wasn't. But the question is not just the plan at the local level. I think we need a plan at the European level, which is implemented on a regular basis, which drills down to each country and eventually, as Giorgio said, some country at the regional level, because healthcare system in Italy and in some other countries too, it is so fragmented. So I think you need to have a plan that drives the healthcare and the prevention on a European level, which at the moment exists probably on paper, because as far as I know, there is a European plan. By the way, I was part of EUCOMED. I used to work for an agency, which is EUCOMED, which is a European. I used to live in Brussels for many years, so I know the environment in Brussels. I was not in the European Commission, but I was working for a group of entities that are coming together on EUCOMED. At that time, we had the challenge to create European standards. So I do know and I do understand how complex that can be, because each country was bringing their own, how to say, dreams or options, ideas, proposals. And I remember just to define the standards for one disinfectant, it was a hard time, because each country, they had their own interest. Each country was pushing towards one direction while the others were pushing towards other direction. And sometimes I understand coordination at the European level is a big challenge. It's not easy. I don't envy anyone working at the European level to make things which are coordinated. But going back to prevention, I do believe that the European Commission, the European structures should focus more on prevention and less, I don't know what to say less, probably less in reaction. I think this is missing at the Italian level. It is missing almost everywhere. I used to live in Germany too, so I know how well organized is Germany. But at the territory level, there is probably a need for a better coordination between the general practitioners and the hospitals. And with Enrico, we have been discussing a few weeks ago in San Marino about the technical or stupid issues between knowing the primary care, knowing exactly which hospitals are capable to receive a patient, and of course the emergency forces that we put in place. Sometimes they arrive to a territory and they don't really know what's going on, who to contact, where is the general practitioner, what kind of diseases those guys that are in the field have. So, and this is the coordination. Sometimes it's simply because it's a coordination, sharing of information. And I do understand that there are many, how to say, egoism or ego or big egos. They tend to protect their own power and they don't want to share. Sharing is basically another area that we need to do more. And I was working on a European environment for many years. I used to live in France, the south of France. You know, for those who are French, do you know the south? And you know probably Saint-Cyr, you know Bandol. I used to live in Bandol for many years, where they have good wines, great rosé wine, which is probably one of the best in France. So I enjoy the south of France. I used to live near Bonn, so I know Germany. I used to live in UK, north of UK. So Europe, it's in Germany, and as I said, in Belgium too. So Europe, it's has a huge potential. But I do know that there are many barriers between countries, between interests of one country, or sometimes not even the country. It's just one industrial group which is pushing towards one direction or the other one. But I think the millions of euros that we have available at the European level, in my opinion, should be redirected towards prevention a lot more than it is done today. And of course, there are many other things I would like to add, but not to take too much time, I will stop here.
Okay. No, ma Nino, Eucomed, it's a private project. What is Eucomed?
Eucomed is the organization of industrial manufacturers of medical devices that rejoin with some European authorities, and they collaborate with the European authorities to produce European standards on a specific product, because this is the so we have now CE mark, but CE mark is just a stamp. So the thing is how you make sure that one device is adherent or it's following specific standards. So define European standards was the challenge that Eucomed had at the very beginning. I remember I was there in the beginning of year 2000, so there were many products that were different. The standards, German standards that have to match with Italian standards, with the French standards, and each country probably had to concede a little bit on their own specifications to make sure that we have a European standard that now it's almost valid for all products we have in Europe. There are still some country-specific regulations because, of course, some drugs, or I would say not even drugs, supplements, they are more strictly regulated at the country level than medical devices or drugs now. So, and the Eucomed was this organization supposed to support and help European organization to create standards that are valid for the entire region, for the entire Europe.
Okay, so at that level, you saw many things already, I think, and
I can write a book about that. I can tell you.
I imagine, but also,
an encyclopedia.
But see, you three guys, I think you can say write a book altogether. But it's still there, Eucomed, or
oh yes,
it still exists?
It's an existing organization. Of course, they take care of the interest of local industry, or let's say normally it's local industry, medical device industry at the country level or the European level. So that's a pretty big organization.
Okay. So, Marianne, I can give you the word to speak if you want, and then I come back to you because maybe some questions are not answered completely, as Giorgio said about Asia and situation in Asia, and the other, Enrico, Nino, if you want. Marianne.
Yes, thank you for the word, and thank you to our speakers to be here tonight. It's a very interesting conference and debate. I will not speak very long. I just picking here and there some ideas. First, we have seen that there is a need, I think, of a school, of a European school, if not international, but a European school, which could be dedicated not only to the researchers, because I think they have already there are already programs for them, but I see it more for the civil society. For the media, for the teachers, and for the citizens, and for the local authorities, in order to be able to respond in terms of disaster, of pandemic, and to have and to find out where they can knock at the doors, because I think the problem of the first wave of this pandemic was that the local authorities, the citizens, and the people who were in charge to coordinate and to answer to the pandemic didn't know where to go. There are a lot of European programs, and the institutions are doing a really great work. A lot of work is done, but there is a problem of communication between the top and down. And I think this is really a very, very important problem, in order to make also the citizens to understand why we ask them to follow some rules, and very important rules, like the mask, or like the lockdowns, or not in the meetings, in the public places, etc. And I think this is really something missing. Yes, and I'm mostly thinking about, I think also the media, local politicians and media, because what we are witnessing today is a war between national medias. They are covering only what is going on national side, on their national place, and they say, okay, but we have today 500 deaths, but in Germany they are not doing better, or in Italy it's worse, etc. So we are also in a campaign of where is it worse than in other places than at home, and we absolutely don't know and miss absolutely the information about how they have managed the crisis in Asia. What has been done there? Why are they so successful in the way to tackle this crisis? And this is also, I think, a question of information and of know-how. Well, this was my main intervention.
Thank you, Marianne, because I think that you capture important themes. And so I would like to give the word to Enrico, because his school it could be a means and a bridge between this world that still lack to Europe, that produce many things, as Giorgio explained to us, but sometimes still lack this communication that is important. And this communication, I think it should be in double senses, because it's important. It's not something that go down from the top. No, because as Nino said, the prevention is important, and prevention is also something that you can find everywhere, because many persons may have a good idea, and so I think that the communication also in this sense is important. And so, Enrico, about this issue of communication, that
it's not only a question of communication, it's education.
Yes,
very important.
Yes, yeah. Communication in the sense of education, because it's important for this. Enrico.
Yes, Marianne, the problem in Italy is a great problem with the communication from the common people, from common people to authorities. We have many problems of communication, and we have so many fake news. And our school is a bridge between, is not school for experts, but for common people. Our tips is common people, students, volunteers, and we organize courses for common people. Only one day of education, so the people know the problem of not only coronavirus, but the disaster situation. And there is a real bridge between the common people and the experts. So our school is come si dice? Concepita, is
conceived or designed.
Sorry? Yes, it's designed for common people. So our objective is to communicate with the common people, and with the students, and with teachers, and with volunteers, with the doctors, not only for experts.
Okay. Nino, Giorgio, you want to add something? Because prego.
I think I think it's the first school for the common people, and not only for experts.
I think it's important, because in this period due to this communication that is worse everywhere, not only fake news, but even the authorities had, as you said, Enrico,
Yeah.
since the first time with Nino in your broadcasting in Italy, you said that both of you said that the communication of authorities and in these second ways I think it's bad, because we have
Yes, of
we
course.
listen to things that are in contradiction. Even in France,
Yes.
some commerce are blocked. You have the great distribution, but some kind of stuff cannot be sold. But now we can reopen better and the conditions. So I think it seems like a mess. And in your school, Enrico, it's also question of training about communication, no, in this kind of
Yes, of course.
situation.
We organized a section for journalists and for communicators. Yes, of course.
Giorgio.
Yes, I would like to share two things. One is about the school and the need for education. I was lucky to be educated in a European school, which is a school where in the same school there were little Italian, English, French, Germans, and we were having the education in our national languages, and then we were all together to study history or geography. Imagine Italians, English, and German learning with a French teacher on a French book about Waterloo. And the joke that we made is that, yes, you know, Grouchy was late, and then the wind was against him, there was a lot of mud, and the referee didn't give him a penalty, but Napoleon really deserved to win in Waterloo. This is what you read in a French book. You don't read that in an Italian, in a German, or in a French book. School is really a place when you can make people, I would say, think in a certain way and understand how things can be done. I will tell an anecdote about how to react to disaster. This is a true story. In 2005, after the first attacks in Madrid, with the bombing in the stations, there was a project which I coordinated for reacting to disaster relief. So where all countries, there were 15 then, joined and exchanged how would you react if there would be a dirty bomb or a chemical attack, something which we were all getting ready to. And then they shared. And I remember the head of the Protezione Civile Italiana was a very nice lady. Berlusconi was in government then. And she was not really a specialist of Protezione Civile, but she wanted to learn. And then she heard how the Swedes are doing it. So the Swedes made a plan with 3 concentric circles. If a bomb explodes in Stockholm, the zone is isolated by a second circle, and in a third circle will become the communication between the people outside. So if someone had a parent in the first circle, they could not go and talk to him. They had to stay in the third circle, while the second circle was treating the people who were in the first circle. And they showed that to the Swedish TV, and 6 months later, after TV lessons to the Swedes, they made a fake bomb explode, but they didn't say it was fake. They went for a real alarm in Copenhagen and Gothenburg. And they tested the system. And the Swedes behaved accordingly, the 3 circle, etc., etc. So they shared. And the Italian lady said, this is fantastic. We will do the same in Italy. And I said, are you sure it's going to work the same way in Italy? Yes, it's going to work. So in between the Iraq war had started, and there were all these discussions with Italy participating to the coalition of the willing. So Italy does the same. You have TV shows explaining the 3 circle and how it goes. And then I said, I met her again, I said, you're certain that the Napolitan mama with a kid in the first circle is going to be blocked? I say there is no human force which can block a Napolitan mama. She will go through the second circle and the third circle. Still, they do the plan, And then they planned to show the journalists how well it is working. So it was one Sunday morning in Quartiere Gianicolo in Rome that this supposed bomb was to explode. Except someone leaked the news the night before, and at 6 o'clock in the morning, you had anti-Iraq war demonstrators who were there and saying the bomb would not explode if Berlusconi hadn't gone to Iraq. There would be no reason to bomb Italy. So the police came to get the demonstrator out. So the press knew about the thing beforehand and everything was cancelled. In terms of disaster relief, what I learned is that culture is extremely important. So again, federalism comes into play. You treat Sweden in a different way than you treat Italy. And likewise, the reaction to the pandemic is different in Sweden as it has been in Italy. And I finish by mentioning why is Asia doing so well as opposed to Europe, if you look at the results? Well, I see three reasons. The first reason is that Asia has learned the hard way. We have not seen it, but in 2003, GDP of Asia went down 20%, 20% in 1 year because of SARS. SARS-CoV-1, the first virus, hit Asia. It hit China, it hit Taiwan very strongly, it hit Thailand, it hit Indonesia. They had to close the airport, they had to lock down. When it came to Europe, SARS-CoV-1 is more deadly than SARS-CoV-2, but it has less infectious. So it sort of died on its own, and in Europe, the containment worked. So the first is that they were hurt. So the difficulty, the second, is that democracy is slow. Democracy doesn't lock you down in your building, and if you get out, you get the police. This is what was happening in Wuhan. You have seen there were lots of documentaries. In Wuhan, there was one person responsible from the party for every building. And if you left the building while you were positive because you had a QR code on your phone, which you needed to activate, some people don't want to download the coronavirus app. There, no coronavirus app, you don't go out. So dictatorship, because it's a dictatorship, was just constraining people very, very, very strongly. There are advantages, there are disadvantages. They could have attacked the virus at least a month earlier if they would have listened to these doctors who were saying, look, there is a virus. In democracy, we listen to these signals. So there are advantages and there are disadvantages in the reaction. And the third reason is certainly the fact that in a democracy, you have powers and counterpowers. One research project that I want to launch next year is to look at the phrase, prosperity is health. I was in a policy lab at the ZEI in Stuttgart with different, there were ministers, there were people thinking about it, and a British professor said, I think that in Europe, and in Europe alone, today, if you ask people, what is being rich? What is prosperity? Today, health is more important than money. I've done a little research, and I prove this is true for the very rich, the one who can work, being isolated, the 1%, the 10%, the 20% richest. Their main worry is not to make money, is not to be sick. For them, for their family, for their friends. The same is true for the poorest people who just have to save their skin. In the middle, it's not so sure. So if you're a governor or if you're a president and there are not 10,000 people dead per day, it's very difficult to tell people you don't go to the bar, you don't go to work. They need to see the 10,000 people dead to be justified. If you're an epidemiologist, and Walter Ricciardi is a very good friend of mine and an excellent epidemiologist, when you see the contamination going up, you know that 2 weeks later you will have the people in the hospital and 2 weeks later you will have the dead people. But until you don't have the people in the hospital, you cannot shut. So the infection goes up, goes up, goes up. And this is the problem of democracy. You need to have someone who has a very high level of trust, Angela Merkel, Mr. Löfgren in Sweden, or their epidemiologist, to make people accept things without the need to put the police in charge or to put out laws. So Europe has been hit by the fact that it's a very, very diffuse and participative democracy. In Africa today, you hear less of problems with COVID because they don't have democracies, and lockdown are rather easy to implement. And in America, it is a democracy, but you have seen that there was a conflict between levels. When you have conflict between levels, like Enrico has said, or also Nino, you need to play together. When you don't play together, virus wins. Thank you.
Allora, Nino, tu veux nous dire quelque chose aussi sur... sì, Nino, you want to say something about this? Because in Roosevelt, we also have said many things about it.
Yeah, so, okay.
Okay.
It's hard to hear you, but it's okay now. I can, of course, I think Giorgio has opened a topic which probably will require another 10 hours of discussion. So around democracy and the crisis of democracy, which is a document that probably some of you know already, and what is behind that. But anyway, so I want to actually discuss about education, because education, I think, I've been dealing with education for many years. I was the responsible of an educational center in Paris, in Elancourt, not far from Paris, actually, a few miles away. And I believe that education probably is the fact, the point that can bring all together. And of course, we have cultures, and Giorgio mentioned the Mama in Napoli. But I feel that there is also a possibility to go and educate those individuals that today probably are far away from some cultural behavior. And I think Europe has been developing for common grounds. I think Europe probably had a lot of things that have developed together. Probably nowadays we need to rejoin and consider our common roots, because probably we have more in common. I used to say during my job at UCOMED that we sometimes focus on the 20%, which is different, while we have 80%, which is equal. And people start fighting about the 20%, forgetting that we agree on 80%. And that's the problem that I see today on a European level, probably on a global level. There is also this difficulty to start from what we agree, and instead of starting from what we disagree, and spend all the time and resources to try to resolve and discuss back and forward about our disagreement, when indeed we have 80% that we can agree and start doing something. So, and I do think that there are two main things we need to do. We need to start probably a European program for education that goes to the general public, to professional, to medical doctors, and I will also include bureaucracy too, because I think there is a big component of employees, public employees, that probably can learn a lot, even from others. I believe the big European opportunity is learning from others. Why do we want to reinvent the wheel when in Sweden and we have examples of the Swedish model. We might agree or disagree with the Swedish approach to COVID, but again, this is one model. There are many things we can share, we can learn from others, and sometimes we think because of our, I don't know, nationalism or because our ego that we others. Indeed, there is nothing bad in coping, in doing what others have been doing better. I think there are things that I've done, we Italians, I think probably sometimes we are too negative across ourselves. Sometimes we believe we are bad, but I think we do many things well, and I think there are many things we can teach as we can learn from others. But this openness, it's what is missing. I see barriers instead of opening. So that's the thing that can change the scheme of things. If we don't change that, we will keep focusing on the barriers and keeping our eyes this way. It will not help. Not us, not the others. Just this approach, we think in itself will change. And then education, focusing more on education, because this is the way for change. No one, in Italy, we say, nessuno nasce imparato, which we can translate in English, and nobody is born already professor or with the experience. So we all learn, and I think education is a good tool that deserves more attention and more resources.
Can I just add something, because this is answering what I was asking. What I was asking about why, and my question is, why are we so blocked in order to learn also from other cultures, like the Asian ones? Has there been an exchange of experiences, of experiments, etc., about how to tackle the COVID, how to manage the pandemic, etc.? This is very, very important also, to listen and to be open to the others, also not only in Europe, because we have our own continent and we can handle with that, but also coming from the world. And this is very important, and not only bad examples, not only closing and saying they are not democracy, so we cannot listen to them. Yes, we can listen to them, even if we think they are not democracy, because they have another experience, they have another culture, they have other ways to tackle the problem. And this is education.
Yes, also, Enrico, this can be keep in account when we create an international school, no? What can you say about this? I think it's important. Then I will.
Yes, of course. Our topics is to create an international school with the specialists coming from different countries to create a common group and a common education in all Europe and also in all the worlds, in all the world. So I think it's a good project, and I think Europe have to finance this type of projects, because is the real future of our continent.
Yeah, I think that's important. Giorgio, do you think that now with these funds that are now allocated, as you said, von der Leyen, you think that she can listen to this direction about education, following all the experience and heritage that, for example, the center of Enrico can be apport in Europe and about all our country.
Competences in education are even less in the European Union than in health. The only things we can do is Erasmus and allow people to cross border to be educated in other countries. No, what the European Union can do, and it is important that the European Health Programme, thanks to the European Parliament who has fought for it, has got 5 of the 750 billions of the Next Gen EU will go to create a European health program. So we cannot use the normal so-called MFF funds of the European Union because we don't have competences in health, but we can use the money that the member states have agreed to be levied and gathered on the so-called Next Generation EU or wrongly recovery fund. We can use that money. Most of it will go to member states, but 5 of the 750 billion will go to the new EU for Health program. What will it do? Well, we don't know. We have plans. So certainly there will be a lot of prevention. There will be procurement. We are trying to see really in a federalist approach, what is it that the EU does better than member states? And certainly what Mariana said, learning from others, learning from other countries, if we can. You know that Taiwan, which in my experience is the democracy, which is the best fighting COVID. So it is not a dictatorship, Taiwan. Taiwan has had 2 people, 60 million citizens, just like UK, no, 20 million citizens, just like Netherlands, very close to China, 2 people died of COVID. Why cannot we learn what Taiwan is doing because China is blocking Taiwan to be part of WHO. So we do it on a part of a bilateral deal, but Taiwan does not have access to all the knowledge of WHO, and WHO cannot learn from how Taiwan is doing because of a political reason. And that is something that the European Union could do and say, look, we don't care, we go and learn from Taiwan. But we have the means. We now have had some good results this year, and it is certain that health will be part of the European prerogatives. In 1 month, I hope, a conference on the future of Europe will start. Citizens will have the opportunity to tell the EU ministers, we want Europe to deal with health. Like you are saying, we want Europe to deal with education. We want Europe to do prevention. This will be an opportunity to address these issues. Thank you. And I'm sorry, we need to conclude now because I need to go back to work.
Yes, so what I proposed you to next make something concrete, because in our movement, Roosevelt, for example, in the Department of Health that Nino Laudani is secretary and responsible, we have a program to improve the Italian health. So now with Enrico, Nino that is going with this school, and then in Europe exists this entity as the entity European Center for Disease, but still more bureaucratic. We could make a network to go in the good direction, as you said, Giorgio, and then propose a plan, as you said during this discussion, a plan for health in Europe with a great connection with education. And so I propose you after this emission to collect several propositions, and then we could do as we did for the Marshall Plan for Education, to write something and send to the European institution, as we said, for the Marshall Plan in Education. And we can connect with the School of Enrico, and then with Giorgio we can make pass this message. What do you think to conclude this in a collective collaboration?
In my opinion, the common culture is a real future of Europe. So I think all the initiative that improve the common culture in disaster situation is welcome to create a common sensibility of the people, of the common people. And I don't know why the Europe don't have a common school for disaster in general.
But they have the Council of Europe.
But the Council of Europe is not Europe, is not a European community. The Council of Europe collect also other countries like Russia, Azerbaijan, and Maghreb in general. So is not Europe. Not only Europe.
Not only Europe. Yes, but if we are open,
yes,
we can start. We can start from that. Marie-Hélène, do you want to say something too? Because you were the last to didn't say too much.
No, thank you. But I think it's really time. It's 12 past, so it was very interesting. I think it was interesting to raise the issues of education. I just wanted to give maybe shortly the example of Japan, which is not a dictatorship and which is in the WHO, just as South Korea is. And in Japan, apparently the people were not so happy about the way the problem was handled, because the instructions were not very clear, etc. And in fact, I discussed with a Japanese girl, and she told me that they don't need to explain much, that they seem to be educated enough to understand that when they are being told lockdown, or quarantine because they come back from somewhere, they quarantine themselves. They understand what it means. So of course, as you said, Giorgio, they've had the experience in 2003, all of them. But there is also this notion of a common education, which is completely missing in Europe. Not only European common education, but even national common education no longer exists. And so we are now banning and censoring the social networks because we haven't done our work in the last 30 years at least of upgrading the educational systems to the complexity of the world we were about to enter. And so we have a huge work to do, which I agree completely with Nino, is education first. Unfortunately, it's going to take a while. Even though education is not just in schools, it goes through lots of different tubes, the media, debates like these that should be, there is more and more. And it's happening, of course, all these debates online that the COVID has created the opportunity of. So it's, of course, certainly creating collective intelligence of problems. But there are so many people outside this kind of intelligence that is being shared still that, we have, I think, to worry about what's going to happen in the next few years. Sorry for this negative, pessimistic tone.
Thank you, Maria-Elena. No, it's true because we have in front of us the situation. So I think that we need to give a coherence and a collective aspect at different level. And not only from the top toward the bottom, but from the bottom towards the top. And I think that the school of Enrico, that work with Nino and others, and we like Movement Rouge, because we are in this kind of thematic, and also all the people that are on the issue, I think that it's important that we collaborate together. And so we have a heart, I think. We have a heart, a project heart, important because the school of Enrico has an experience and an heritage. And when we have a base, a heart base, I think that is important to like the first stones, no? And so we start not from nowhere. We have an important stones, and I propose you next times to continue and to promote and to develop this idea at different level for the good of every citizen at different level. That can be the common people for a short training, but more complex to the authority that you cited that are important and bureaucratic that must manage on the territory the things that are important. I see many people here in France that are come si dice, sindaci, mayor, mayor in English, mayor, yes, mayor, president of region. So I can see and discussing with them that no, many things have happened, and so they were as fall from the trees. And in any case, they deal every day with emergency situation, but they were surprised. So to prepare the future and anticipate the future, as Leap, Maria-Hélène, as Marianne with and us with Movement Rouge. So I invite you with this, and also I invite people who follow us to join in this direction. So I thank you all, and I give an appointment for the next new European perspective. So I thank you a lot, and I say you bye, and we see you soon. Ciao, ciao.
Bye-bye. Thank you all. Very interesting discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. Goodbye, Nino. Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you. Thank you to every one of you. Thank you. It was very great. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye.